Hello, this is my voice. These are my hands. You're going to hear a lot of me talking and see a lot of fingers wiggling as we have a lot of stuff to get through today, but it's all very cool. So here we go. What are we talking about? It is the first official Deluge open source community firmware release, Amadeus 1.0. Very exciting, very cool. So many great features. Folks like Ron Cavagnaro are already covering bigger stuff like automation view and grid mode. He's very excited. You should watch all his videos. He has a reason to be excited. It's very cool stuff. I was going to do more of a deep dive into some of the smaller, less sexy kind of stuff that I consider quality of life features that I didn't think I needed, but now I can't live without, along with a couple others. So how do you start? First, you just get the firmware file from the link in the description, pop it onto your card, remove any other bin file that might be on there, and stick it into your Deluge. The usual way, Shift plus power on to update. That link in the description will also give you a list of all the features that have been added, as well as a link to the nightly firmware if you want to be on the bleeding edge of what the developers are working on that might not have made it here yet because it still has to be finished. There's some really cool stuff that's still being worked on. Also, you'll find a link there to report any bugs or issues you might have. I suggest joining the Discord, which there should be a link in the description for that as well, because that's where all the action happens and the devs are so great and the community is really cool to be a part of. As you can see also, I'm on a super old 7-segment display. Everything still works perfectly for both 7-segment and OLED displays. The developer is very passionate about making that work for both units. I'm sure the OLED displays might get some bells and whistles on the screen at some point, but for now, everything's pretty much the same. We'll go into the firmware menu here to show you C1.0.0. I think that stands for community, not cookie. So the first thing I want to show you is we now have a feature menu. So here is where you would turn your community features on or off. And you can see there's a huge amount of them in here. Some features don't need a menu item like this. They're just kind of there because they make sense. These are more for some of the more interesting things that might change what a button does, or they might add certain CPU intense things like grain effects. But it's up to you if you want to use some of this stuff. You don't have to. Your Deluge will work very well. In fact, I would argue it's more stable now and more CPU capable than it has ever been. But, take that with a grain of salt because I am no dev. I am just the guy that's hammering the firmware as hard as I can to try to break it. And then they fix it, which is amazing. So let's start with something that I have learned I can't live without and doesn't sound sexy at first, but it really is. So here we go. We'll start with sticky shift. What is sticky shift? Well, first we have to turn it on. And then sticky shift is exactly how it sounds. You press shift, it stays lit because it is now sticky. It's a little more complicated than that, obviously, but now with shift lit, I don't have to press it or the audition pads when I'm in a synth and I want to adjust items here. I don't have to keep pressing shift or holding an audition pad to go through all this stuff, which is great. Now, of course, if you want to just adjust one thing and you don't want your shift to stay sticky, just hold it. It didn't stay lit because it knows when you hold it, a long press means you don't want it sticky. You just want to do one thing. But a short press means you want to adjust a bunch of things at once. So super helpful, very useful. So that's already, very cool. You'll see me use it all throughout this video. Let's start. We got a brand new synth. I'll add some notes. Okay, drop the tempo. This is an initialized patch, so it's going to be annoying for a little bit, but we're not here for perfect, beautiful sound design. We're here for new features. So sticky shift, let's start by saving our ears a little bit, turning on a sine wave. See, already nicer. Now, let's add a triangle wave. Detune that triangle wave to make it a little more complex. Let's adjust the transient, the attack there to get rid of those little transient clicks from the sine wave. Okay, so we've got a smooth little sine and triangle wave happening here. And you saw a sticky shift help me do that a lot. Another thing, I can't believe I'm talking about 2 shift-related features right off the top, but here we are. Another thing, let's say I want to bring in that triangle wave more quickly. Normally, your turns are 1 point, 1 increment, 1 parameter value per turn. But if you hold shift, there's now accelerated shift as well. So now this is by 5s. So super quick. Very useful, doesn't conflict with sticky shift. They work very well together. I can do the same thing over here if I want to drop that sine wave more quickly. Super useful. You'll see me doing a lot of that in this video. So there we are. We're already having fun just using the shift button. I never thought that's where I would be with the Deluge, which is great. The next thing, stereo unison spread. Those three words are very cool in what they imply. So right now, if we play this sequence again, and we'll add some variety. Like I said, this isn't a sound design, beautiful sounds tutorial. This is more, let's get in some features. But if you go into your voices, I've got sticky shift still on. We have, our voices are detuned. There's only one voice now, so let's add a couple more. So now you hear a little thickness because the voices are detuned, but it's still center. Now you can pan this if you want, but then you're only going in one direction. Normal tricks would be maybe a ping pong kind of delay to get some stereo width or the reverb. But now, while I have the number, I'm in the number shortcut for our voices. If I hit the select knob, another parameter option comes up. This is Unison Spread. So as I turn this, I'll be quiet and just put your headphones on and listen to the stereo field. So it's subtle, but now the voices are spread out in the stereo field, which is super cool. So you'll hear it if I drop the voices down to 1. Now I add them back in slowly. Already, we have stereo width we didn't have before, which is so cool. Like I said, normally you used to have to do slapback delay, ping pong, or reverb tricks or stuff to get that. So 2 shift things and a stereo unison spread, and we're already worth the price of admission, which was free, by the way, if you already owned a Deluge, which is amazing. The next thing is another way to get some stereo width, which you might have heard about already. There's a new mod effects item. And this is, again, on by default. This one you don't have to turn on, just like stereo unison spread, you didn't have to turn on. Only sticky shift so far was in that firmware menu. So we go to our mod effects, flanger we've had, chorus, phaser, now stereo chorus coming up. So actually, let's turn off that accelerated shift. Help me turn that off real quick. We're turning off unison spread. So now we'll go back to, let's get our chorus depth up, drop the rate a little bit, and now normal chorus, stereo chorus. Again, another way to thicken up your sound without relying on delay or reverb tricks, which is super cool. Next up, let's look at new filter options. So we have new filter types. So if I go, we'll play our lame little chord progression here again. It's 2 chords really, but we go into low pass. We now have 5 filter types. We used to have 3. So drive, we've had for a little while. State variable band pass, state variable notch, ladder filter 12 decibels per octave, ladder filter 24 decibels per octave. The drive and the 2 ladder filters we've had, but state variable band and notch are brand new. So they are just another flavor. Really, it's just like a little bit smoother, maybe a little less gritty. Maybe the drive and ladder filters have a little more drive to them. But the state variable filters are a little more transparent, maybe. Just another flavor that you can experiment with. Now, I believe this is that was band. So here's notch. And I would encourage you to experiment with all this stuff yourself. Same with the high pass. High pass now has state variable band, state variable notch, ladder. So there's our state variable band, high pass filter. So there you go. Already we have new filter options that we didn't have before, which is super cool. Let's keep that rolling because the same developer, and I'm going to say developer, they all use different handles, often on different, whether it's GitHub or Discord or the official forum or Facebook or whatever. So if I name one, it might seem wrong. So I don't know what their names are everywhere. But in this case, I know it was I Love Steak on Discord. So, thank him. But we now have 2 empty buttons here that weren't being used before under the decibel per octave for low pass and high pass are now filter morph options. So if, let's see, what filter are we in? State variable notch. Now, with the state variable filters, the morphs between low pass, band pass, notch, and high pass. So now you can kind of set your filter morph in the middle somewhere or modulate it, which I'll show you in a second. But it also does the same thing for the high pass. It's just in reverse. It starts high pass, ends on low pass. So in this case, we don't have the, there you go, which is very cool. But the morph still works with our old filter options. So for ladder filter and drive, it adds drive to the filter because they're already a bit more driven. So let's hear, it's a bit subtle, maybe not really with these oscillators. Yeah, see, a bit thick. Listen to that 12 decibel per octave filter now. It's very thick, which is great. And for the high pass ladder filter, it adds filter modulation, FM, to the filter. You can kind of hear a bit of that like sneaky standard FM sound just sneaking in there, which is very cool. And like I said, another really cool thing is that this is modulatable. So I've connected now the high pass morph to LFO1. And let's just see. There you go, we're morphing. That's just modulating the morph knob for the high pass filter. So if I go back to say, we can do the same thing to LFO2. Use our accelerated shift. There you go, we're morphing that. Now, of course, the real trick would be to do them with different LFOs, so you get a little variety. So let's do that. Already, based on how our filters are set or our LFOs are set in different speeds, we're already getting a bit more variety, which is super fun. So now you have more sound design options, which is very cool. Which does bring us to the next thing I'd like to demonstrate, which is pre-filter wavefolding distortion. That's why I have the sine and the triangle wave chosen for my oscillators here. That, and also it's more, I guess, nicer on the ears if you're listening for a long time. They're a bit rounder. Because I'm gonna ramble. But another empty pad here beside the saturation knob is now wavefolding. So it's a little more subtle depending on your oscillator type, but I think we'll get some bang out of it here. Yeah. So that's a pre-filter wavefolding distortion. And again, it is modulatable by the mod matrix. So we're already hearing a bit of that there. So much more sound design potential just in these quick features that I've gotten to so far. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about are the two new LFO shapes we get in this firmware. So we've always had four being sine, triangle, square, and saw. Now we get sample and hold and random walk. What are those? You've probably heard of sample and hold here and there. Random walk is a little less common. I didn't know what it was. So I've set LFO1 to sample and hold, LFO2 to random walk, and I find that the transpose of the various oscillators helps to showcase the difference between these two. So we'll start with oscillator 1, transpose, patch to LFO1, which is sample and hold. And we've got our speed, kind of medium fast. So there you go. It's the 1950s sci-fi calling. This sample and hold, my understanding is it grabs a value or voltage holds it, samples it, holds it until the next one. And kind of randomly, it keeps grabbing and holding values, but at random. So you get this kind of start and stop kind of randomization effect, which is super cool. And it's great in all kinds of parameters, but I actually quite like it on transpose. Especially you just add a bit of delay, a bit of reverb. You're already into sci-fi 50s movie territory, which is fun. So now let's do the same thing. We'll turn off oscillator 1, turn on oscillator 2. We'll take oscillator 2 transpose, modulate it by LFO 2, which we know is random walk. Now we'll calm random walk down a bit. So you can hear random walk, if I turn the delay and reverb off from the previous one, random walk is a little more drunken sounding. It's a little smoother, but a little more drunk. It goes up and down one increment at a time, is my understanding from the developers. If it starts at 1, it can go down to 0 or up to 2. If it ends up on 2, it can go back down to 1 or up to 3 next time. And it drunkenly kind of walks around the values. And I find it can be subtle in some parameters. When it's modulating some parameters, it can be more subtle. But the transpose option I found was a fun way to showcase it. And again, you kind of add some delay and reverb. Speed this up if you want. Kind of like a little teleportation device from the 50s. Now, if you add them both together... Oh, sorry, I'm transposing. I'm not bringing my oscillator in. That would be funny. Let's add oscillator 1 back in. Instant sci-fi 50s movie sound effects. So this is already a lot of fun to me. Those 2 new LFO shapes have a lot of potential for sound design. So one feature I can't believe I've made it this far without pointing out, especially as I was going through all the filters and changing gold knobs, is the idea that you can actually see values displayed for the gold knob changes now. You never used to be able to do that. So for something like this high pass cutoff amount, I can go in here and see, okay, it's 16 because I'm in a synth and all these values are here. So they're all there. Volume would equate to master volume, reverb to reverb amount, but they're all here on the screen now, which is super helpful. It's not as necessary in a synth, like I said, but in a scenario like a kit, for instance, let's create a kit. These are just pocket operator sounds, standard kind of beat. We'll put some probability so that we don't drive our ears insane listening to the same thing over and over again. Okay, so, oh yeah, and I changed our synth a little bit just to make it drive me nuts a little less. So now you're in your kit. Let's say you want to adjust the entire volume, the volume of the entire kit. You only have one option to do that, and that's through the Effect Entire gold knob volume. So I can do that here. But in the past, you couldn't see the value of that. So if you had to match this volume to another copy of this kit in another section of the song, you were looking at the LEDs or using your ear as best you could, or hacking the XML, which I've done in the past as well. But now it's as easy as just taking note of the value you see there, which is super helpful because you don't have access to some of these parameters in Effect Entire. There is no shortcut for them that you can alter for the entire kit in one go as a master effect. Each kit item has their own, which you can access normally, but for the Effect Entire stuff, you can't just do the entire cutoff of the kit in any other shortcut way. So seeing the value there can come in handy later when you're trying to match things up. So that's just a quick one. Okay, while we're talking about the gold knobs, there's another feature that I'd like to mention that work with the gold knobs and really help when you're in a scenario with Effect Entire on for a kit or an entire song. So let's say right now you got this kit. What other sounds have we got here? Okay, sure. Okay, so you've added a little bit of a kind of quasi-hat thing that's very slow. And you want to add delay to this guy. Okay, so you put some delay. Now you want to change the sync timing of the delay. You can do that via the shortcut for this particular instance. Easy, right? Okay, great. So you did it for one delay item or one kit item. But what do you do when you've got the entire kit and you want to add delay to it? Right now, I think that's about 16ths is the sync timing. So I can change the delay time here, but it's not synced. So you can do it by ear probably and have some luck if you practice. But I usually just leave it there in the middle where it blinks and you're in sync, because I don't want to mess with it and get stuck. So if I'm performing live and I want my delays to be on time, you know, I used to have fewer options unless I wanted to go in and add delays to each of the kit items, which I would often do. So now let's go into our features menu. I'm gonna scroll past it, there you go. Now, delay sync on. So what this does, when I press the gold knob, you used to press the gold knob, it would change between analog and digital, which, you know, is fine. If you want that back, you just turn it off, and now you can switch between analog and digital on the delay knob, which is fine. But here now, let's turn our delay up. Now I'm switching between sync options. 30 seconds, 64ths, 128, 256, 512, 1024, back to fourths. So now I can make sure that whatever delay time I want. So let's say I put the kit. Let's say I put the kit at 8ths or 16ths, right? Now I go out to my entire song. Let's bring the synth back. I've done some tweaks to it. Now we're in effect entire here. We've got delay. Let's set the sync time and delay here to 30 seconds. So now you got two different delay sync times on effect entire instances, and you can change them. It's kind of performative actually if you set it pretty high on the repeats. And now it's going to start self-oscillating. So it's kind of fun. You're jumping between sync times in a very useful way, which is pretty cool. So that's one feature that I like to turn on and just leave on. But like I said, if you prefer to have access to the analog or digital delay type there, you can just turn it off or turn it on when you need it in the features menu. Another feature I'd love to turn on to demonstrate something else we can now do with something related to the gold knobs concerns stutter. Now, stutter is something we all have a love-hate relationship with. It's hard to tame. It's all over the place. It can be very fun and performative and glitchy, but it can be difficult to work with. So there is a feature now that I can turn on, but first let's demonstrate stutter as it is, right? So here's our song, whatever we're working with here. Now when I hit it, great. I'm probably on sync to 16ths as long as I stay in the middle here. The moment I deviate, we don't know, and you can go all the way up to kind of self-oscillating territory almost, right? So it's hard to stay on time, stay synced like your delay was there. So if you leave it and it's in the middle, it's blinking, you know you're synced probably to 16ths, but anywhere else you're kind of guessing. So there's a feature we can turn on in our trusty features menu here, which is stutter sync on. Okay, now you'll notice when I turn the stutter knob, it's going to flash on the screen the value that it's quantized to. So quantized stutter, 8ths, 4ths, 16ths, 30 seconds, 64ths. So I can start where I was before, 16ths, and I can still move up and down like I could before. But now my start point can be adjusted to be synced. So here, 30 seconds, 64ths, 8ths. Becomes almost like a beat repeat. So very performative now. So, and this is super fun, especially, you can just do this to the kit. You can go in, leave your beat, leave your synth going, and now you can just be letting your synth free run while you've kind of beat repeated your kit, or the other way around. So there you go, you get some variety, some very performative aspects right away. So Quantized Stutter, super fun, makes stutter so much more useful, and I use it live all the time now for a bit of spice. So another feature I should touch on while we're looking at master effects and gold knobs, of course, is the master compressor. This is something that has been around for a little bit now. Any developer basically can take the open source Deluge code, do their own thing with it, and put it online for other people to use. But in many cases, what's happening is that code is then also being ported back to the community so that it can be re-ingested and added to all the other features, so everyone can benefit from all the features instead of having to kind of go around and grab 50 different firmware files and pick and choose the ones they want. So what's happened is that compressor got brought back in and then re-architected to benefit better CPU and just more well integrated in the way that Deluge effects are kind of handled. So it's a little different than it used to be, but shout out to the developer on Discord, I Love Steak, who listened to me whine and moan about every little change he made, and everyone is very particular about their compressors. So it was a very, very healthy discourse around compressor changes, and I think it's worked out really well, and a lot of people are really happy with it. So I'll just play this little loop we got. Just like before, it's in effect entire, the sidechain and song view did nothing, so now it's still the compressor. In this case, it's kind of a one knob compressor to start. So you turn this up, you hear it get fatter, get louder. I'm gonna have to turn my volume down a bit so I can talk over it still. But that's adjusting more than just threshold. There's makeup gain happening there. There's other things under the hood happening there. Basically, the goal was that it should be as easy to use in the one knob state as possible, so that if you're performing live and you just want to squash your dynamics, or you want a quick kind of sweetener, a little glue, it's easy to achieve. But if you click this knob, now you'll see full, and now the reverb knob now controls my other compressor parameters. Similar to when you're in the mod effects and you have chorus rate up here and chorus depth and offset down here. So now you have ratio, attack, release, high pass filter. So you'll see as I turn up the ratio, this is in 2:1, 3:1, 4:1, etc., all the way up to 256:1. You can see I have a gain reduction meter in this mode as well. So I can see if I'm at 3:1 now, there's my gain reduction as I increase the threshold, which is more than just threshold. And then I can lower the attack, I can raise the release if I want, and the high pass filter is pretty cool. This is a new addition as well. The value on the screen here is in hertz, and what it does is it ensures that nothing, so right now, nothing under 102 hertz, so your big like sub bass and sub kick frequencies, they are not being affected by the compressor. So you're letting your low end through untouched, which is great. So you can get some still bang out that low end, but then compress and adjust your dynamics otherwise. So there you go, master compressor. It's been given a real overhaul, and then you click back to one version, and now the reverb knob once again controls your reverb. But if you want to make adjustments to the compressor, you can still do your threshold. All your settings are remembered, but now this is adjusting your the one knob version, threshold, makeup gain, etc. And if you want to go and fine tune anything, you go back, click full, you're back in here, here's your ratio again. Now you can click back to get back to reverb if you want. But yeah, that master compressor really helps tie things together. Now, one more thing we should talk about while we're on the subject of things that need to be turned on from that features menu, but that may have a bit more of a CPU impact than others, is of course grain effects. Everyone was really happy to hear that the Deluge got grain effects as an option, and it sounds great, a lot of fun, great for resampling, but it does have a bit of a CPU impact. So the suggestion is not to go too overboard with it, but it's kind of use at your own risk, and I have a lot of fun with it, so it's worth exploring. So let's turn it on. You'll see all the stuff I'm not even getting to here in this menu. There, it's on. So now, grain effects in this view, in effect entire and song view, it lives with our mod effects up here. So chorus, phaser, stereo chorus, grain effects. Now, we'll turn off our drums and we'll go to the synth first. So in synths now, it lives in the mod effects menu. So flanger, chorus, phaser, stereo chorus, grain effects. So we have options for it here. I'll just press play. It'll sound like it's on because it is, and we can adjust it. So already you can hear a bit of things going on here. Now, rate controls the rate, of course, like you would expect. Depth, same idea. Crank the depth, and you're only really hearing the wet signal. Offset does the size of the grain that you're capturing. So there it's very, very tiny versus more of a little sample. And then feedback adjusts the preset. So there are a pile of presets, and as you scroll through from 0 to 50, you go through things like it's got an octave down, an octave up, unison, there's tempo sync options. I don't remember them all, but they're in that description of all the features that have been added if you want to look for it. But here we can scroll through. So here, let's go through feedback, and we should hear it change. There's an octave down. Just glitching in every now and then. That might be an octave up. Oh, maybe that is there. And then you get to tempo sync, which has different effects depending on how you've got your rate set. So let's go back to one of the other ones. Okay, so there you go. We're in the middle. Okay, so there's our grain effects on this synth only. Now we bring our beat back in. Now, of course, you can put grain effects on the entire thing if you wanted to. I just thought it might be fun to have the beat still peek through. One thing that's fun about grain effects, like I said, though, is resampling it. So let's do that now. So I'll grab a sample. I'm not being too precious with timing here. There, we got our sample. We can turn it off. We could actually turn grain effects off now if we wanted, just to save CPU. Let's say you're worried about that. So now let's go and do another bonus new feature. I wasn't really going to cover this one, but I did get into it the other day. So let's try some lazy chop. So lazy chop, let's start a new kit. There's our sample that we just recorded. I'm going to select slice. And instead, this is normally where I would choose how many slices I want it divided into. I'm going to hit this knob over here. And now we're into lazy chop. And you see it says 1 there because we haven't chosen any. So here, there's the sample. And now what we do is when we select another one of these pads, it will create a new slice for us based on where the start time, based on where we selected. So now we've got 2. So let's see. There's 1. Now let's pick another one. And let's say we want to adjust the start time of this guy. So I'm going to bring it back. You'll see the green guy. It goes a bit slow when you're adjusting the start time, but see there, it bopped. And you can also adjust the transpose if you want by semitones. Okay, so let's just grab one more for now. Okay, and now we've got our 4 and we're happy enough with them. Hit the select knob and now they're there just like a normal kit. So now let's say we bring back our beat. Now let's record some of these in. Okay, let's turn off that beat for a second. So here we go. Our chopped up little samples. Now we can just have fun with it. Now we've got what we need. Grain Effects gave us some interesting slices. Now I like to add some, let's do some ARPs. That's always fun. Oh, I'm stuck in there. Oh, we got to give our ARPs a bit of room to breathe here. So Sorry, sticky shift and my habits are all conflicting here. Let's see. Oh, sticky shift is still on. Okay, there you go. You're having some fun. Bring that beat back. Let's do like our, let's add some delay to this entire thing using our delay. Okay, we got 30 seconds. 30-second delay sync because of our tempo sync to delay on the gold knob. And remember, we got that sync stutter too. Okay, give it some reverb. Bring our synth back now because we have that too. Okay, this is all a bit more interesting than it was, at least at the beginning. Let's do the same thing here. So this is just the highest level overview of a lot of really cool quality of life improvements that the Deluge has gotten because of the community firmware. And I can tell you already, there's so much more to come. And I really encourage you to join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description. There's a Patreon that I'll link to as well that does not benefit me at all. I'm not a developer, but it would benefit the developers. Probably they'd use it to buy more testing equipment or something. But and the Discord is a place where you can request features. You can talk to devs about how hard a feature would be, or if you have bugs, or if you want to contribute in any way, just testing new firmware. Super encouraged. But in general, I mean, I'm so ecstatic about the progress and everything that's been given to the community by these developers who have put all their free time into it. And I know Synthstrom is loving it too. The accolades they're getting for just being a company that's open sourced their firmware. It's just very cool. It's not something you see every day. So I encourage you to download the firmware, install it, try out some of these features. There's like 1,000 more I didn't have time to go through. Some of them are really big and cool. Watch Ron's videos and just, enjoy everything and thank all the devs you see. So hopefully, if there are more features that you'd like to see, I can do more videos. Get in touch, let me know. Otherwise, just have fun and mess around. That's what I'm going to do.